So let's take a deeper look at this lens, as part of the review. I've showed you this already in the unboxing, but not this closer, in the macro level. This is the lens cap. I mean, like the lens hood of this lens Opteka 12mm f2.8, and it has logo on both sides with a dot as a marking, and this is how you use it. You press this and put over that lens, and there are no metal rings inside as a part of filter threads to accommodate any filters. So this actually goes over the lens. Okay, so this is all plastic. Next comes the lens cap. It has a very nice branding over here, and it's an interlocking system. So you just press this, put it over the lens and release it. Okay, so that's the lens cap, and here is the filter that I'm using, which is an circular polarizing filter, and this is a circular polarizing filter from Amazon Basics. This is a much cheaper circular polarizing filter, but it does the purpose, what it says, and I'm very satisfied with it. And you might have seen the results as well in my photo walks, so it does what it says, and it's of good quality as well. And circular polarizing filters are normally used to filter the reflections in an image, and it also cuts the light by 2 stops anyways, and it gets darker or lighter when you rotate this ring. Okay, that one is of 72 mm for the filter size as mentioned in this lens. So this is the lens itself. This is the front element that you are looking here, or the front side of the lens. You have a good branding over here which says Opteka, and could see the bulging front element, and this front element has a field of view of 99 degrees, so that's how you get the wide angle part of it, and it kinds of avoid all the distortions that is there when you're capturing an image. So what else it reads in the front side? 2.8 aperture, 12 mm focal length, 72 mm filter size thread. This symbol is for the diameter, and 0.3 feet or 0.1 meter minimum focusing distance, which is like 10 centimeters, and this is multi-coated. So the rainbow colors that you see in this image, which says nothing but it is multi-coated. Okay, so that's coating is there to avoid all the chromatic aberrations and all other aberrations, and it also filters some clean light, okay, to get all the good light inside the lens to create the wonderful image that you're trying to make. Okay, and this is how the lens look from all sides. This is completely a metal construction. You have a marking for where you can mount your lens hood. Okay, and that's happened to be the front side as well. Okay, I mean marking for the lens hood, which is the side of your lens, and you have some branding over here, and this grip is given to the focus ring. The focus ring is bit tighter, but it turns smoothly without any hassle, and I can turn it even more easier when it is mounted onto my camera. Okay, this focus ring has the markings, and this markings are the distance markings, which can focus from minimum distance. I mean, like this is the point which finalizes the marking that you're going to fix it. So it can starts from 0.1 meter, which is mentioned. This is all in meters, and it goes up to infinity. So you could see like the upper reading is for feet and bottom reading is for meter. That's what it says. Okay, so that is the distance markings on the lenses, and you have the aperture ring in the rear end. So this aperture ring doesn't have a click. Can you hear anything when I am turning it? No, it doesn't have a click, but it has some friction and it has some stop, nice stop. It's not free enough to rotate, as well, but it has some mild click or friction on the aperture markings as well. And you see that. Sorry, this is all steady. I could hold it in front of your camera, because like any small movement in my hand is going to be big or viewed in a enlarged fashion, because it's all macro kind. So kindly forgive me, this is the best I could do. So it has a kind of not exactly click, I would say, but some stop, like when you turn the aperture ring. Okay, and it's not smooth either, so that you could use it for some video purpose. This is not a video lens. This is completely designed for photography, but you can still use it for video when you're sure about the aperture that you're going to shoot in. You're not more dynamic in moving from a bright light area to a lower light. When you're not in that situation, when you're sure about the aperture, you can still use this lens for videography, but I would not recommend it. I strongly feel like this lens is designed for photography. Okay, and when you look at these markings for aperture in this lens, they are given in full stops: 2.8, f4, 5.6, f8 and f22. Straight away from f8 to f22 there is a bigger jump. There are two full stops in between that f8 and f22, which is like f11 and f16. If you look at this lens, if you turn the aperture ring, it does not turn in full stops, like from 2.8 to f4. There is a stop in between this aperture markings. So 2.8, and there is a small stop here, and then it goes to f4. So it's not completely smooth either. So there is a half stop between these full stop markings. So f2.8 to f 3.5 or like 3.2 or something like that. There is a half stop over there. Then after this f4 there is a half stop, f5.6 and half stop, f8, and there is a half stop which is like f9.5 or like f 11.5 or 11. f11 is the full stop after that, and then goes f13.5 or 13, and then comes f16, and then comes f19, and then goes f22. So this lens has quite a jump between f8 to f22. Okay, and it has a silver ring behind the aperture marking, and it has a red ring above the focus ring. Okay, and when I remove the lens cap, you can straight away see the rear lens element. You have 3 screws given here, and those 3 screws are just for the mount, and I don't think you can adjust anything with these screws or anything, or micro adjust the focus or lens if need may. I don't think it has such options, or I might be wrong. You might have to check it, because the information available for such things are very minimal. So I did not get into a situation wherein I have to service this lens at any point. So I'm still using it in a very good condition. I'm using it in a very brand new situation. That's how I have maintained this lens since the day I bought it and started using it. So I may not know much in detail about that if you want to do some micro adjustments to this lens and everything, but all I could say is, like, I don't see any adjustments as of now. It reads X mount here, and it has some sort of let me try to focus there, some sort of number given for this lens. Okay, this is how the rear element looks like. And if you take the first version of Helios 58mm lens, like it'll have a spring lever here, I mean like small button here, and when you mount it along with the adapter, it'll press that ring and your aperture will be released. That option is there for making use of aperture priority in your film cameras, I believe. So if I'm wrong, correct me in the comments, but you don't have such options here. Everything is manual, and it's all in the lenses. Shutter is from your focal plane shutter that is available on your Fuji X Pro 2. Okay, so that is the closer look about this lens, and we'll get back to this in much more detail. So here we have my Fuji X Pro 2 body and my Opteka 12mm f2.8 lens. So now I'm going to mount it. You see the red marking over here, and you match that red marking on the camera body, and turn. It clicks like this and it locks itself, and that's how it looks with the camera body, and that's how it looks when it is mounted to my camera. Okay, so when we take a look at this lens with my Fuji X Pro 2 body, right now I don't have the battery. I'm going to put the battery in here, and it's very easy for me to turn the focus ring when it is on the body. Okay, there is a mild friction and a little bit of tight to it, but it's turning in a very smooth fashion when I'm using it with my camera body. And so goes the aperture. It's very smooth for me to adjust the aperture. Okay, so since this one is being a 12mm lens, a wide angle lens, Fuji X Pro 2 is a street photography camera, and what happens is, like, within this rangefinder viewfinder, which I have showed you earlier also in my other video, like why I chose a rangefinder camera. This is a hybrid camera. It has a digital display as well, and you can have a digital display and an optical viewfinder as well. That's why it's called hybrid. Okay, so what happens within this lens is, like, within this rangefinder view is, like, when I'm using a 12mm wide angle lens, which is beyond the marking that is given in the Fuji X Pro 2, it shows 4 arrow marks in the corners of this viewfinder marking, saying like the frame line has maxed out this viewfinder range. Okay, so normally Fuji X Pro 2 has frame line markings for its lens from f18, I mean like 18mm focal length, I believe. Now they have changed that to 23mm or 21mm from that is the widest markings that you will find on Fuji X Pro 2, and Fuji X Pro 3 and other versions, which is yet to come, might have markings only for the street photography focal lengths, like 23mm and above. This one has up to it goes up to 16mm or 18mm. I'm not sure. I might have to check, but that is the widest it can go. So when you're using even more wider lenses, it will show it like an arrow mark in the corners of the viewfinder. So it has an electronic viewfinder, it has optical viewfinder, and it has a small electronic screen where it can be used along with the optical viewfinder. So it's called optical viewfinder. And another thing I want to share here is, like, when I am moving my aperture from f8 to f22 here, there is a huge jump between f8 to f22. That's what we discussed before. So the in-between half-stop aperture that you would find from f8 to f22, I assume that to be f16, because from my shooting experience on the photo walks and the image results that I've got, that is f16. That's what I would say, because it's a sweet spot. The images is crystal clear and it's very sharp even at the center and even at the corners, there is a mild distortions anyway, but even at the corners and even at the center, it's very sharp, and there is no distortion or aberrations that I could find in this center marking. So I would call this in f16. From the distance I shoot, from the distance between this lens and to the subject, between 200, 300, 400 feet or to the infinity or the longest landscapes that I have shot, it did not produce any sort of distortions at this aperture. So I would assume it to be f16, because like if it is going to be f11, I will have limitations in the distance. It might fade away, or it will be blurred a little bit when it goes beyond certain distance, and if it is f18 and above, like till 22, there will be distortions appearing due to the acute aperture that you're using it on your camera while shooting an image or a landscape or an architecture or something, because it's the nature of any lens that it would produce some sort of distortion in the image, either in the center or in the corners, due to the acute aperture, because that's how light bends, after f18 or f19 or f22, when it goes beyond that, beyond f16, light kind of bends and it produces some sort of distortions anyways in any good lens that you use. So sorry, I went a little off the camera, but what I find from my using of this lens at this particular spot, in between f8 and f22 here, that should be f16. When I shot it at f22, it showed some distortions anyways, so that should be f16. And I normally use the backside screen when I'm shooting with this camera, with this lens, because the viewfinder is maxed out anyway, so I still kind of work out, or I'm still learning in terms of composing an image when I'm looking through the viewfinder for a maxed out viewfinder. I'm sorry guys, I'm recording this on my mobile phone. It got overheated and the video got cut off in the middle. Forgive me for that. Where was I? I was talking about this viewfinder. When this viewfinder max out its frame line for this wide angle lens, like 12mm lens, I tend to use the back screen with focus peaking to focus an image with this lens and compose an image with this lens and take a photograph. And that happens to be the case for me most of the time. Sometimes I do feel like I kind of miss Sony. I'm so sorry guys, my phone got overheated again for the second time, and this is the third time I'm trying, and it might cut off in the middle. But before which I'll try to say what I want to say in much faster fashion. So due to the maxed out frame lines inside my Fuji X Pro 2, and I'm using a wide angle lens here, I use the backside screen with focus peaking most of the time, unfortunately, to shoot my images. I sometimes feel like I could use the Sony Alpha 6000 crop frame sensor, which is also an rangefinder style camera. Sometimes, not all the time. You could ask me like why I'm not using an EVF with the Fuji X Pro 2. EVF is good, but it's on the slightly dimmer side when the sun is so bright outside in your field, when you're shooting out in the field. As you know, like I shoot only during the daytime, and most of the time it happens to be like the sun is already above your shoulder, so it's noon or afternoon, or like almost close to noon, like 2 hours before the noon time, and Archaeological Society of India opens their sites, that which happens to be my locations as well, where I want to shoot, all happens to be opening only after 9 a.m. in the morning. So I never shoot in the dawn or dusk, or during the golden hours. So what happens is like sun is already harsh and it's so bright, so I'm not able to use this viewfinder much clearly, because like there is no eye cup to block all the light that is coming in. I might have to strain myself too much, picking my one eye into the viewfinder to look into the electronic viewfinder, or to make use of the electronic viewfinder and shoot an image. So these days I just use the backside screen with focus peaking. It's also big and it's much helpful for me, and that focus peaking requirement does not come all the time. So most of the time I use it only for composing an image, because like I always put my lens to f16, that is between f8 and f22, and put this focus ring at infinity, or just push it to the maximum end, and shoot all the time. And my subjects and every landscape that I'm shooting is also in such a way that it's minimum 200 feet or 100 feet away from me, so it's easy for me to shoot in this fashion. I often feel like this lens and this camera to be a point and shoot camera, because I always leave it at f16 and shoot at infinity. That's funny, but that's one of the facts. So why I was mentioning often about focus peaking during my review of this lens is because like most of the Chinese lenses, sometimes these distance markers that you find, except for the start point and to the end or the infinity point, sometimes it may not be accurate. Though I'm not calling Opteka 12mm f2.8 lens to be inaccurate. I'm not calling that. I'm not saying that. But certain Chinese lenses, from my experience, do not turn to be much accurate with the distance marking. So that's why I trust on focus peaking rather than trusting on the distance marking. So I cannot put this to 1 meter and keep shooting, like when the subject approaches, when using it for the street photography. So I don't use this lens to be a street photography lens. I just use it for my landscape and architectural photography. This is one of the reasons. I'm not calling it it's not accurate. I'm not saying this is inaccurate. I'm just saying like there are chances for this to be inaccurate. So please don't trust on this all the time, unless you are using a branded lens like from Leica or Weiglander or Carl Zeiss or any other medium format lenses, or very old film camera lenses for this manual focus lenses that you find on the market, to couple this with the modern digital mirrorless cameras, So that's what. I'm not calling it so, I'm not saying so, I'm just saying, I'm just being on the safer side here. Okay? I'll show you an image in the screen. I mean, like there is a 3D printed product available online from a freelancer photographer who's selling that for his own purpose, or they are a team of photographers who are selling it. The 3D printed eye cup for Fuji X Pro 2, like that is much bigger. It kind of blocks a lot of light, and you can use the EVF or optical viewfinder, even when the sun is too much bright, So you can make use of that. Unfortunately, I couldn't find the link right now, but I'm letting you, my viewers know that there is an option like that. You can Google like 3D print eye cup for Fuji X Pro 2 and find one and buy it and make use one for yourself, Okay, and that would be around $20 or so. That's not expensive, I believe. Okay, so yeah, there is an option for you.